Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Triangle BNI. My name is Mike Manning, and each week we bring you a small business success story from Triangle BNI. If you are not familiar with BNI, it is Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. In our little slice of heaven here in the Triangle, if you're not familiar with North Carolina, it's the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area. 29 chapters going strong, six core groups growing, trying to become full chapters, and about 600 members. And each week, we like to bring you a reason why you should come visit a BNI chapter and why we'd love for you to join. Because if you or someone you know is looking to start a business or grow a business, we'd love for you to come visit us and meet some like-minded people and see how we can help you. And our guest this week is Stephanie Jopson. She is Director of Operations at South Mountain Group. They are a title, escrow, and loan closing company. Stephanie, glad to have you here today.
Thank you so much.
Now, we are in late March. Well, yeah, late March. Oh, no, April Fool's Day. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
So the
the
weather's good. It's
beginning.
only fitting that you and I are on the show today on April Fool's Day. We'll try to make people will, it'll become apparent in about 5 minutes to everybody why the two of us are on this show. So we are glad to have you here today. Stephanie is part of RD20 called Bridge to Success, where she is the education coordinator. They meet Tuesdays at 8:30 in the morning at the Iron Skillet in Hillsboro.
Mebane.
Or Mebane, sorry.
Mebane.
You are the
Yeah.
furthest west chapter in Triangle BNI. So
Yep.
that's one thing you guys have going for you. Why did I say Hillsboro? So thanks for cleaning me up on that.
That's all right.
But yeah,
You
you
know, close
guys,
there on the border.
yep, they meet at the Iron Skillet. And if you love a good buffet breakfast, we were laughing about this earlier, just walking in the restaurant to walk to the back room where the meeting goes, you got to walk by the
Yeah.
bacon, the
It's like
sausage,
walking
and
your
the
kids by
eggs.
the gumball machines when you go into the store. It's too tempting to pass
It
up,
is
you know.
hard, but it's a good location right off of 40 there, easy to
It is
get to, but they
certainly.
meet Thursday mornings or Tuesday mornings at 8:30. So if you live in the Mebane area and would love to come out and kind of see what BNI is all about, 8:30 in the morning, come in the front door, hang a right,
Yep.
and go all the way back around to the back there.
Pass right by the food.
Yep. So Director of Operations at Stone Mountain Group, like I said,
South.
April Fool's Day. How's business going for the start of 2019?
So South Mountain Group is doing great for 2019. It's good to see some of those rates that are coming down. So we're seeing the refinances going back up and the purchases. It's really looking to be a great year for us. We're excited.
What does the market so walk us through where the title and escrow comes into play, because we all know the realtor. Some of us have heard of closing attorneys. We know insurance. We know probably a home inspector. Where does title and escrow come into the mix here?
So the title is what you need anytime that you're taking a loan and your property is going to be the collateral. The North Carolina requires that you have title insurance. So that's going to come into place when you are going under contract. You should always start with that pre-approval, get yourself a good lender, and then working with your agent. And when you start that process, you can let them know that you have somebody in hand. Many of those companies might have people that they already work with. So it's always good to know your options. And in North Carolina, they allow you to choose the buyer to choose whether you use a title settlement company or whether you go to a closing attorney directly. Both processes have to have a closing attorney, so we do have an independent attorney that handles anything for North Carolina compliance that we need, specifically the property title opinion, the deed drafting, free trader agreements, power of attorney. So we're kind of a three in one. I like to say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost of the process. You have to have title insurance in North Carolina. You have to have an attorney process, and then you have to have the loan signing and settlement services. And we do all of that inclusively.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit more about going into kind of what you guys do for a living, because, like I said, most of us are like, well, I know I have to have a title, but
Yeah.
all that stuff. So we'll get into that. But if you've ever been to a BNI meeting, there's depending on the size of your group, there's either a 5 minute or 10 minute speaker, and each member is introduced by their member bio sheet when it's their turn to speak, and that's how we do it here. So, Stephanie, we're going to start with that. So, our speaker today, Stephanie Jopson, Director of Operations at South Mountain Group. The location and years in business for the company.
So our corporate office is in Georgia. We do have an office in Cary. I live out in Orange County, so I do a lot of my networking and community stuff out there in Orange County, Durham, and Wake County, Alamance County. Years in business, this company has been about 13 years in business. I've been in this business about 16 years, so 8 of those years up in New York State
Mhm.
and going into my 8th year down here in North Carolina.
Who started South Mountain Group?
Ellen Libby, she is the owner and, an extraordinaire behind all of this.
So when you said Georgia, now I know Stone Mountain, 'cause I used to live in Atlanta, but where did
Okay.
South Mountain come from?
So, the company actually our corporate office originally started they were all from, Middletown, Maryland. So there is a South Mountain in Maryland, and so they all originated there, and then Ellen moved down to Georgia.
Okay.
It was very company run, and so her parents were also very involved, and they were running the corporate office in Maryland. When Ellen moved down to Georgia after about a year or 2, I think, they ended up moving down to Georgia as well, and so our whole corporate office moved down to Georgia and out of Maryland.
Okay.
But now they're all down there in Georgia, that's where the corporate office is, and then we cover 40 different states,
Yeah.
so we have offices kind of all over, and lots of remote
Mm.
connections.
Now, are you able to do any work in another state, or do they have to use the agents in a state? If I had a family member living in Colorado and you guys serve that, how would
We
I
yep, so if you had a family member living in Colorado, which we actually do Colorado deals, so we would use our title company to get
okay,
together the title work. We still have our company that does the underwriting for the title
okay,
insurance, and then we would have somebody in Colorado go to wherever they chose to sign, and they would sign the deal for them and get us all
okay.
of the documents
And you
back.
would get a commission because I know you and all that good stuff, and there'd be a
That would be
party
great.
weekend and
I don't get
everything,
a
right?
commission, I get a job.
Okay, there you go.
That's kind of my commission out of that.
Uh, Now, my second favorite question on all this, previous types of jobs. And by the way, folks, if you're watching, we've had maybe a couple glitches here on the technical side. It is not April Fool's. It is April Fool's Day, but we're working hard to make sure that goes. So, if you see that, that's what that is. It's not the face of the host that's ruining the camera, but at least that's my story. So, previous types of jobs, we're going to get into your professional jobs, but I like when people go back on the high school, late teens, maybe early 20s, most memorable story to tell.
Alright, well, my first real job was at an apple farm. So I did dishes at the apple farm, and they did lots of baking and homemade goods up there, so I just worked the back end, and then I did some cash register stuff. My favorite previous jobs, and I think they're both kind of fun, is I used to build bows, like archery bows. So
Oh,
bows and arrows for Golden Eagle Archery, and I worked for there for a long time. Moved to Florida with the company and, took a position down there when they joined a corporate office or joined their sister satellite kind of company down there. So I moved down there and lived in Newport Richey area for a while, and I loved that. That was one of my favorite previous professions.
how do you learn how to make a bow?
So that's where I fell in love with the whole factory mindset and actually how I apply it to business now because I loved when I went to Golden Eagle Archery, I learned at the beginning of the line, and you have 2 different sets of limbs that are going to be attached to a riser. And the limbs both have to have the same weight that they're going to pull when they get attached. And so you have the limbs, they go on the riser, and the next step they go down and you get some cables that are made. And then they go down the belt and the bow gets put down on a press and you do the cables and the spacers between the cams and you build the whole thing. And then you take it off of there and you put it on a press and you make sure that the bow actually pulls the weight it's supposed to pull without snapping and blowing up. So I learned that process of building the bow, starting at the beginning of the line, working to the end, and then the quality control of it. And I loved the process. And it actually is a lot of what applies to my job now. I love seeing a contract come in, much like the limbs that are coming in. We want to make sure that the contract and the title order match. And we're putting those pieces together and we're getting our attorney to get those pieces pulled together. And then we're matching everything and moving it down the line into a product of the lender saying clear to close and your agent and you being ready to sign, sitting down at a table, getting those documents signed, getting your lender's approval, getting it recorded, and you owning a home. And
Very
I love
nice.
that. It's so the factory mindset for me that pulls into
I
it.
like it. So, real quick, what is a riser?
The riser is the middle piece of the bow. So it's where you're actually holding on to the grip of
Oh,
the
yeah,
bow.
okay.
And then you have the limbs on either side, and then you're pulling them.
Do you have to were you part of the testing of said bows and arrows and
Yes.
stuff?
So
Okay.
every time that you actually built the bow, so once you were the person that was building the bow, you'd be the person, receiving the riser that already has the limbs and everything attached, and then you get the cords that are with it or the
Okay.
cables. Then you'd have to put it down on the press and put everything in there so that they're properly spaced on
Yeah.
both ends. Those are called the cams. And so you'd have to make sure everything was properly spaced and put together. And then you actually had to test the bow. So whether it was a low enough um, weight where you could
Mhm.
actually pull it yourself, or on the higher ones where there was no way that was happening, you'd put it down on the press and you'd have to make sure that it actually pulled the weight that it was supposed to pull. And so if it blew
Okay.
up, you knew you messed up and not to do that again.
Well, and I like the fact that you have to test what you made, so if it blows up on anybody, right?
Yeah, then you know it's yeah. Well, it could have been a split limb from the person at the front of the line,
Okay.
but you are the quality control too at the end of what's being made, and it gives you a sense of pride
There
for
you
it,
go.
and I like that.
Now, if everything goes well in the process, how long does it take from start to finish?
Um, Geez, I wouldn't say more than 20. It's been a long time.
Okay.
But I mean, honestly, it shouldn't take more than 20 to 30 minutes as
Oh,
long as
okay.
you have, I mean, you can build a fair amount of bows pretty quickly once you get the groove of it
Okay.
and have everything. And then each one changes. So, yeah, you might put different spacers in a different kind of bow
Okay.
coming
Yeah.
down. So it's getting to know the product of what's going down the
Mm.
line.
How's your
Getting a
archery
groove.
game lately?
No, it's been a long time, and back in the day when I used to shoot them, I used to have terrible bruises all up and down my forearm from the cable.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
some people wear arm guards, I wasn't good at that,
Mhm.
and I used to get beat up pretty bad.
Okay. Was your aim pretty good back in the day?
Yeah, actually, it yeah,
Okay.
and then even I also built some air guns for Crossman air guns back in
Oh.
the day, and so I've built bows and guns. I'm a weapons specialist. Um, just kidding, but
Are you?
but
Are
even
you?
now, pistol shooting, I'm still a pretty good aim.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good deal. We like those stories.
yeah.
Next section is under personal information. So tell us about the family.
Family, I have 2 sons. I have an older son, Robert, he's 20, and then a little guy, Isaac, and he's 7, and, complete opposites from each other.
Mhm.
Older one, calm and compliant, younger one, spawn of the devil,
Yeah.
likes to, laugh and do whatever naughty thing he's about to do.
How do those two
Um,
deal with each other with the age difference?
Most of the time pretty good. Sometimes you don't know who's 20 and who's 7. So, Isaac might walk by his older brother and kick him in the shin, and
Yeah.
you'll see Isaac's head yanked back
Uh-huh.
from Robert grabbing at him. But this last weekend, I had to go to Tennessee to see my mom in the hospital dealing with
Mm.
some things. My little guy ended up getting this flu thing going on, and so my older son stayed home with him so that I could go see my mom. And
Okay,
that's
that helps.
that's fantastic.
I know about the little brother thing. My brother and I were only a little more than a year and a half apart. And my favorite thing to do growing up was just beat on him because I outweighed him by probably 40 pounds. I was a little taller than him, and he was a swimmer, backstroker, no body mass, no nothing, right? And I just enjoyed beating on him. So one day he's laying in the den on the floor watching TV, and I just walked by. I didn't even say hi. Goes, "Mom, Mike's hitting me." And out of the back room, "Michael, quit hitting your brother." And then the hitting began. So if you're gonna tell her I did that,
Yes.
I'm gonna start it. But I thought that was smooth.
Yeah.
Never I didn't even address him. Like,
Yeah.
so
Back in the day, Robert told me, "If you ever have another baby, I'm moving out." And then when I
mm.
got pregnant, he was like, "Okay, if it's a boy, I'll stay." And so when I had the ultrasound and found out it was a boy, I was like, "Robert, you can unpack your
Yeah.
bags." And yeah.
Nice. Pets and animals.
Oh gosh, this can get fun. I
Okay.
have a goat named Norman. He is a very, very nice looking goat. He's very regal looking. So that's Norman. I have a potbelly pig named Tulip, and she's very kind pig and she's very smart pig. I have 3 German shepherds, Daisy, Samson, and Luna. Luna, the lunatic. She's the youngest of them
Okay.
and the newest addition. And 4 cats, 16 ducks. It's spring, so they're twitter-pated. So I anticipate having a lot more ducks soon if anybody's looking for ducklings. I don't sell the eggs,
Now you must
but,
live on a little bit of land to have all this.
yeah, I have
Okay.
about 3.5 acres
Okay.
out in
Right.
North Hillsboro,
Right.
and,
The
um,
boys
and
enjoy all the pets.
they
Okay.
do, from afar sometimes. Sometimes they're helpful,
Mhm.
sometimes they're not. they tend to do more of the inside animal helping out, and
Okay.
then I'll take care of the outside ones.
How does a
Um,
goat get to be named Norman?
so back in the day, City Slickers, I
Yes.
loved that movie
Oh,
City
okay.
Slickers, and he had a cow named Norman, and so I always wanted a cow named Norman, and then I'm like, "I'm never gonna have a cow named Norman," and so when we ended up with a goat, I'm like, "Please, can we just name him Norman? Because it's the closest thing I'm ever gonna have to a
Yeah.
cow named Norman." Um, so funny thing is actually about 4 years after that, we did end up with a cow, and his name was Max, and we don't have Max anymore.
Did Max
Um,
taste good?
maybe to somebody else, but, our my
I have to
mantra
ask.
was, we feed what we love, we don't eat what we feed, and so, I
Ah,
didn't ever want to eat him. He has been consumed, but
okay.
not by us. He was sold and
Mm,
consumed by people who appreciated him very much and how
alright.
grass-fed and he was. Um, yeah, I'm a little, um
Did the boys,
yes.
miss how old were the boys when,
So
Max was
Max just went last
traded?
October,
Okay, alright.
and so, the younger one the older one, like, he got
He
it. He
knows,
was
yeah,
like, "We're so over that cow, he
yeah,
needs to go." He was like a big toddler of a cow, and I
yeah.
won't get too personal on it because 'cause it'll make me sad.
Okay, then we'll move on. Okay,
But yeah, and so they know he became
okay.
and it's just natural,
Do the
um
dogs go around Norman?
yeah, they do. So Samson goes out to the field with me every day. He's the one that goes out into the pasture when I go to feed them. Norman, funny story about Norman is he has to go on a leash when I feed him, like this giant leash, because when I feed the goat and the pig, he likes to not eat his food. He likes to go eat her food.
Okay.
And then he'll gobble all of her food and then he'll go back to his dish and go eat his goat. So Norman has to go on a leash until Tulip is done eating. And when Tulip's done eating her food, then Norman can come off of the leash.
Do you
Um,
feed them the same thing, or he just
no,
really likes any food?
so he likes her food. He doesn't like just any food. He's not one of those goats that will just eat anything. He likes things that flower and things that he shouldn't eat, like my flowers or my rose bushes, if he can get out of there. But he's kind of a prissy goat. So
Okay,
he eats what he likes in the field and he likes his hay and he likes his oatmeal, but he also likes to eat her oatmeal
okay.
if he can get the advantage. So he has to go on a leash until she's done eating. And a funny story about that is one day I was going to do a workshop for Joe Navarra,
Mhm.
and
Friend of the show,
yes,
yep.
and I love him, and I was so excited about going there. And I drove all the way to Morrisville for this
Mhm.
workshop, and I got there and I realized that I never let Norman off of his leash. And all I could picture was my goat just going in circles and having something traumatic happen. And so
Yeah.
I called the neighbors, I called everybody I could think of. Nobody was there, and I did not get to go into that workshop. I had to drive all the way home to get Norman off of his leash,
And he's looking
and
at you like, "What took you so long?" Right?
yeah, he
Yeah,
was a little upset. He
yeah,
was not traumatized, but he screamed
yeah.
loudly at me and
So, do you work out
his
of the house?
sometimes
Right?
I do. I stay very busy with networking meetings,
Yeah.
marketing, and loan
Okay.
signings. So some of it is done out of the house.
Right.
Last couple of weeks and covering for another gal that's been out. I've been doing a lot more office work.
Okay.
So I'm kind of trained from the inside out. So it really just depends on what the company needs from me.
Because working out of the house is an acquired working from the house is an acquired taste. I'm not good at it.
I am
I've the
very
last
good at
month and a half,
it.
I've become very good friends with the, little round table next to the power outlet at Panera's, so I can plug in my computer.
So
Because if
they
I'm home, I'm, like, piddling, and I just can't not turn the TV on, so I respect the
yeah.
heck out of people that can work from the house and get their stuff done, so
I'm very focused, and
okay.
actually, I hear that a lot. I just when I get into it, I'm just
Yeah.
sucked into it, and I it's like nothing else is going on around me,
Okay.
so I have a good focus.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Congrats on that, because I do not. Hobbies and activities of interest.
Ah, gosh, I would love to have a long list of these, but I feel like I do more, like, work and then mommy stuff and then animal stuff, but if I got to choose anything outside of that for some pleasure, I love going to hockey games.
Ah.
I love hockey, I love, live music, so if it's a local band playing somewhere local or Mary Stocks going to Metallica with
Yep.
me, it just no matter what it is, I like live music, I like to have some fun with it.
Yeah, Mary told the story when she was on the show about the tall guy in front of you too, which neither one of
Yes,
you have any height to speak of.
I
She
know, and
acknowledged that and then said, "But even with that, this guy was really tall."
and
Just wouldn't sit
he was, and he was very excited to be there.
and I think he wanted to dance with Mary a couple times, yeah.
He wanted to
Okay.
dance, and then he danced himself all the way down the rows in front of him when he fell. It was traumatic and kind of funny.
Yes. He had it coming, that's it. City of residence and for how long?
I have been in Hillsborough for 9 years
Alright,
now.
and we'll get around to talking how you got down here.
Yes.
So, hockey fan, are you Hurricanes, Rangers, Sabres? What are
So I'm
you?
actually a Sabres fan,
Okay.
and I'm kinda on the fence about that. So I am a Sabres fan, but when the Hurricanes are playing anybody else other than the
Yeah,
Sabres, I go with the Hurricanes. So I do like to go to the Hurricanes games.
yeah.
If they're playing the Sabres, I'm gonna root for the Sabres. Any other time, I'm going for the Canes.
And what I've learned about the Triangle area as far as other teams, when the Sabres come play the Hurricanes in a hockey game, the Sabres, it's amazing how many Sabre fans either live
Yes.
here or make the trip. And then if you drive around on a Sunday during the NFL season, the number of bars that have Pittsburgh Steelers signs,
Oh,
huge following down here.
I'm not surprised.
But the
That's
Sabres fans just, yeah, just
yeah.
take that over. So, which is pretty interesting. Burning desire is to,
I would love to write a book.
ooh, on what?
Well, I don't really know. So it's just kind of random stuff. More like I don't even know what you would call it. It's not really fiction. It's certainly not nonfiction, but more little excerpts of things, random things that have happened, or stories, or
Okay.
just little like mind things that you've thought.
Like, why do
You
I
know,
have a
like
goat and a pig
like,
and 3
why do I
dogs?
have a
Yeah.
gun? More like deja vu, and what do you think about deja vu? And,
Oh,
like a
okay.
theory of that. I don't just random
Okay.
things that you would talk about, and it would be called Conversations with My Pillow,
Oh.
because they're just random
Yeah.
kind of things that you would just shoot out there or
Or
talk
laying in bed
about,
trying to
or
go to
just
sleep, you're thinking like, "Hey,
yeah,
deja
like
vu." The key to your success is?
integrity. I think integrity
Mhm.
brings that, because at the end of the day, no matter what I'm doing, I'm trying to do it with the right heart, the right intentions. So even if I fail or did not do my best, or maybe I gave my best, but it didn't come out the best,
Mhm.
that I feel like if you have the right integrity and the right heart behind it, that you still can push through and and come out right for it.
Very good. And there's a few people watching today who didn't know you, but they're getting to know you. So what is something else they don't know about you yet?
Oh, I wasn't prepared for that one, and I should
Stop.
have been. I
It's in the
know.
questions.
I know, and I try to come up with something new at any point of that, and I think the last time we actually had a meeting, I'll come clean on this. The last time that we had this meeting and I was a speaker and this question came up, the one thing that I admitted that people did not know about me was that morning I had a temper tantrum, and it wasn't like a four-year-old and the child, on the f or four-year-old child on the floor throwing down, but I had just had all of these things happen from the I don't know, the dog being sick on the way to the door and
Oh,
tripping over
yeah.
this, and I just had all these things happen, and by the time I got to getting myself ready, I, like, threw the hair dryer down and push the brush that way, and I just felt like I'd had, like, this little temper tantrum of things, and so that was what I had confessed at our last meetings. "One thing you don't know about me was this morning, I had a temper tantrum." I might have said a few naughty words and apologized afterwards, but, um, this morning the one thing you don't know about me, in addition to all those other farm animals, I also had a llama and an alpaca.
Oh,
They were both a lot of fun. But they were both a lot of work, and
yeah.
they kind of came together like pack animals, and the llama had something going on with his back leg, and so I
Mm.
called the people that we had got them from and was like, "Look I've been taking care of these animals, and, they weren't really what I'd bought, but just kind of ended up taking care of." And so, they were great. They were fun to have for a little bit. The first day that we had them, they ran away. They, like, broke through the electric fence, and so the
Oh.
llama ran one way down 86, and the alpaca ran the opposite way down 86, and so we had all these people going out different directions to try to reel them back in.
Oh, that was good
Um,
YouTube video, I
it
bet,
it
wasn't
would have
it?
been hilarious.
Yeah.
We actually in walking the llama back down the road
Yeah.
on this leash, we had people that were pulling over and were like, "Can we take a picture with you?" Like we were a circus act. I mean, it was pretty funny.
Well, but that sometimes in life, you see a picture and it's like, "Okay, send this out. What's the caption for this picture?"
I know.
"Woman walking llama down the street on
Touchdown.
Highway 86."
Highway
Yeah.
86. Turn, 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 turn.
So who's lost? Who got away? Why are they doing this? Has the next animal been identified yet?
I would like to, wean out a little bit. I'm looking up the life expectancy of goats and whether or not I should write him into my will for my children to take care of. I don't think that goats actually live that long, but if there was any other animal I could have had, the only farm animal I ever wanted is a horse.
Yeah.
So I would let all
Okay.
the other farm animals go and just have the horse, but they're a lot of work too. So
They are, but the
yeah.
calming, just riding the horse and just the
Yes,
calming time being out
and
on
I
your
love
own
it.
would be
I love
yeah,
horseback
yeah.
riding, so
Mhm. Alright, so we are here with Stephanie Jopson, Jopson. She was telling earlier, some people, because I asked her, "Do they spell the name with an E?" And she
Excuse
goes,
me.
"No, they make it Job, Jobson," which I hadn't even thought of, so
Yeah.
but it is Stephanie Jopson, Director of Operations at South Mountain Group. They are a title, escrow, and loan closing company, and you've been with them since July 2012 in a couple
Yes.
of different roles. How did you
Yes.
first come to join South Mountain Group?
So, I moved down here right after the market crashed and just needed a change of pace, needed a change. I had some family down here and wanted a change of scenery. So I came down here and kind of put some resumes out there to some local companies, but with the market crash, there was not a big business boom in that area. So I actually started serving at Anna Maria's in Hillsboro, became a hostess there, and then took a temporary job doing some accounting for a trucking company.
Mm,
And the trucking company was being bought out. And so it was kind of slow paced. They needed me there for X amount of hours, but it wasn't really a full day's work. And so they were like, well, we don't care what you do. We just need you to be here. So just do something with yourself. So I went online and started looking up every company in the area. I just Googled title companies and just started sending things
yeah.
out and had sent my resume in for South Mountain Group. And, um, and at first there wasn't too much kind of movement on that. I went back to New York for 2 weeks and almost moved back to New York because I just didn't know what to do with myself. And I came back from New York and there was an email from the owner that said, "Hey, I can put you to work, and if you go get your notary license, then you'll be able to do X, Y, and Z,
No.
and then learn this whole front end of what you've been doing for all of these years."
Mhm.
And so I said, "Okay." And it worked. It worked really good for me and what I had going on and started with them.
Very good.
Yeah.
Good story. Sometimes out of the blue, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
was. It was great.
Very nice. I always like to ask people on the show, we talk about BNI all the time, which is what the show is focused on. The first time you literally ever heard BNI.
Was from the owner of the company, Ellen, and she kinda pulled a fast one on me because about 2 or 3 weeks into the job, she said, "Hey,
Yeah.
so there's this group called BNI, and I have each one of my people go into a chapter at BNI, and she started explaining it, and I was like, "No, no, 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 no. I don't sell. I'm not a door-to-door person trying to sell something." And so I was like, "I don't think so." She was like, "No, wait." Here's where she got me. "You don't have to sell us. You just need to go to the group every week, get to know these people, and educate them
Mhm.
on our company being in existence, why it is in existence, how it could benefit them, and just get people to know about the company. So you don't have to sell anything. You just have to go out there and educate people on there being another process that they might not be aware of." And so I was like, "Huh. Well, okay." I'd been doing it long enough, and I love what I do. I'm really blessed to be in love with what I do, and so I was happy about that, and it was a different perspective for me, So I was able to say, "Okay." And so she sent me into a BNI chapter, and it was a core group that was just trying, they were like what they call an incubator group. So
Mhm.
they were trying to put together 4 groups out of 1 and just having everybody come together really early at, like, 7:30 on a Thursday morning
Oh, it's
out
the
by
best
South Point.
time.
Oh my gosh.
7 oh, the mornings, people waste the mornings. I preach to people. I
Oh,
beg you, take advantage
I'm
of the
still
mornings.
dropping my little guy off at school at
Okay,
7:30
that's a
right
factor,
now, and,
alright.
like, so for
Okay.
me but at that point, he wasn't in school, and so I could get him to daycare at 7, but it was pretty brutal, but I went there and I started visiting, and Tim Hinton was there, and
Mhm,
he was the one that was the director consultant trying to form these groups together, and excuse me, we had, Julie Russ, she was going to
mhm.
be joining there, and she had had some great BNI experience and was going to be in there as the lender. Um, so this incubator group ended up turning into one group, and that's really what that was our core group that kind of built into that, and so
Okay.
that was my first BNI
That turned
experience.
into RD20 that you're in now.
No, actually, it was a long time ago, so I don't remember what the name of
That's
our
fine.
chapter was, but
That's
it
fine.
did later dissolve.
Okay, and that
And then I
happens, yeah.
joined the one out there
Okay.
in Mebane.
The iron skillet where you can
Yeah,
eat a breakfast
I know. I
for
have to
king or
learn all of
queen,
the
right?
RD numbers.
That's fine,
I'm more
Jones.
like, "What chapter are you? Just tell me what day and time you
Because a lot of
meet."
people say, "Where do you meet?" "Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I know
yeah,
that,
yep,
yes." You go on
yep.
location, everything. You started as director of operations, now you're client relations and operations. Nice, combination, nice mix there. Obviously, you're a people
Yeah,
person, which is why we love having you on the show here.
thank you.
You need to explain a previous job for me. I
Okay.
know a fair number of things, but sometimes see things like, "That's a clever name for what?" It says default examiner for Frontier Abstract and Research Services. Now, in layman's
Yes.
term, what does that mean?
That was the result of a market crash and all of the foreclosures that were coming in. And so, the
Uh,
company that I worked for had a specific department, for a company in, Rochester, New York, that were handling a lot of those foreclosures. So all the foreclosure certificates were coming through them. We
okay.
had to pull the titles, make sure that everything was in order, all the assignments were recorded correctly. You had to do that, and then you had to type it into a foreclosure certificate,
Okay.
um, for that process.
Because I, for the life of me, I sat there looking at this yesterday. I'm like, and I try to, are they, what did they because I was focused on the wrong word. I was focused on
Yeah.
the research part and I should have been focused on the default.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yep,
That makes sense.
yep, default examiner for that. Is started there as director of operations.
Okay.
So,
Right.
when I started there, I had no idea what title company
Yeah.
anything was and learned from the phones up in this business.
So what are the red flags that we know because we've had realtors on the show and red flags and I've learned what I learned early on. We've had a couple mortgage people on and everybody loves when you are pre-qualified.
Mhm.
Okay, so now it says you're telling a realtor, I have a letter that says I can buy a house up to this amount, which makes everybody's job a whole lot easier. So we've
Yes.
had realtors on before and we talk about red flags and funny stories they hear and they've, potential clients, oh yeah, I'm good up to about 300. And they don't really know what good means because they don't want to tell
Yeah.
stuff like that. So what are some of the things you guys see in a deal from a title and escrow point that could be either a red flag or a concern?
So we would see red flags more on the seller side. So you'd be surprised at how many sellers are not very forthcoming about what they actually have on the property
Yes.
and think that are just going to be forgotten or that they can just say, "No, that's not mine, just take it off." And that's really not what you can
Like
do. You
what?
actually, like judgments or even specifically mortgages.
Oh,
So my favorite story on that one is we had some people that were buying a house, and so the lender sent us the deal, and we were working on it, and our attorney showed that there was a mortgage on the property. So this guy and this woman had bought the house together. They were not married. North Carolina is a marital state, but they were not married.
let's stop right there. You
Okay.
knew where this was going once you saw bought together, not married, right? So go on with your story.
Um, so so they're not married, but they own a house together, and they decided to use that house as a rental, and they moved to South Carolina together. After they moved to South Carolina, they ended up splitting up and they decided to sell the North Carolina property, which our buyers were going to be buying. So they're selling the property. Our attorney shows that there's a mortgage on there. So I go to the sellers and I say, there's a mortgage on there. Your seller sheets say that there's no mortgages. So I need the information so I can get the payoff for that mortgage and we can make sure your buyer's title is clear and that there
Okay.
can't be any liens on there. So the woman says, no, 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 no. That was a closed line of credit when we moved to South Carolina. And I'm like, well,
Uh,
we need to get a release for it from the lender. So we
oh,
had to get the information from the sellers in order to request the release from the lender. So the seller man says, no, no, that was paid off. And I'm like, okay, it wasn't. So this is the information I need in order to get the release.
nice.
Then he says, I'm going to show you. Oh, he says, that's actually a lien against the South Carolina property. I'm like, well, it's recorded in North Carolina against this property. So he sent me a mortgage statement, and the first page was from a home equity line of credit showing the amount, and the second page was from a primary mortgage with the same lender. So I'm
Yeah.
like, those are not the same mortgage statements. They're two different pieces of paper. Either way, by the time it all rolled out, um, he had accessed this line of credit that had been paid off and closed. He was able to access it, borrow against it, and thought that it was just going to be like all go away. We didn't. That amount of money had to come out of his half of the proceeds,
Oh.
and she had to fight for it to show what had happened. Um,
Oh, and she was
they
hopping
all
mad.
yes, and the lender had really tried to help this whole situation. They had provided this credit supplement that showed that the mortgage was actually against the South Carolina property. So you're like, "Give us the release then for the North Carolina one." And then they're like, "Oh, no, it is the North Carolina one, and that's a line of credit that's been accessed." So it was absolutely insane what they thought was going to be just
Yeah.
pushed away, but again, it would have resulted as a lien against the buyer's property. If he had ever stopped paying on it, they could have foreclosed against that buyer's property
Oh,
because of that prior lien that had been
yeah.
recorded. In North Carolina, it's whoever's recorded first has that top priority.
Oh, okay. That's
So,
good to know.
if you have a $40,000 lien, if that's recorded before your new $200,000 lien, and there's no agreement for them to take a second position, then that $40,000 lien has precedence over the next one. So,
Oh, that could have gone
so it
south
really would
quick.
have it really would have affected the whole thing, and it was very ugly, and everybody was very upset, but
And
it
the
had to
guy started all this by not telling
by
anybody.
just not being upfront about it and saying, "Yeah, that is a line of credit, and I'll pay it off, out of
Oh,
my part of these proceeds."
no, he
And
wasn't about to do that. So,
no, no, he just thought it was gonna go away,
which is
and
another example of how money changes everything. It
it
changes
does.
once money's brought into any conversation. You
Yep.
see this. We've had lawyers on with wills and stuff like that. Just oh my gosh,
Nobody
it
likes
is
to talk about it, so we
no.
see red flags on the seller's side more than
Now,
anything.
if you weren't diligent in your work, that could have gone through.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. They wanted us to take the credit supplement that showed it was a South Carolina property as a means of being able to remove it from the title. That can't be. We put it in front of our insurer, and our attorney said that there's
Yeah.
a lien on there, so we have to have an answer for it. And so we had to
Wow.
do our due diligence to say,
Okay.
"Well then, lender, if you're saying it's the South Carolina property, then give us the release for the North Carolina property so that we know it's not against there." And then they're like, "Oh, just kidding. It is the North Carolina
That did they
property."
know that?
Um,
Eh,
I
eh.
don't know. I don't know what hand was looking at what. I
Yeah.
just knew I had to have an answer for it,
Yeah.
and our attorney and our insurer are both like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
And so
How long did that extend the closing?
it actually extended it by a very long time, almost a month,
Ooh.
and the lender was so upset. But we did our best to explain to them that that's our due diligence for your buyer.
Yeah.
You don't want your buyer coming back to you in 6 months and being like, "What the heck? Why didn't
Yeah.
you deal with this when you found it 6 months ago when I was buying a house? Why did you let me bite it now?"
But the buyer stayed on. They wanted the house that
They
bad,
yeah, they
right?
did end up buying the house and everything went through. It left some very hard feelings from everybody, unfortunately, but
Okay.
at that point, I can just let it go. It doesn't bother me at that point because I know that we did the right job.
And you are there to protect the buyer.
Yes, the title
Okay.
insurance and the lender essentially, because if your lender's letting you
Oh,
borrow
yeah.
$200,000 against your house, they wanna know that nobody can supersede their loan. They need that clear so that they know that
Yeah.
their property that they're vested in is not have a threat against them.
From a seller standpoint, what's 2 or 3 things that if any potential sellers out there watching today, what they should be thinking of that they need to make sure they have in place? So I'm not gonna tell people don't take out a loan on something without telling your spouse or your significant other. What kind of things do they need to have paperwork do they need to have in place for for you guys when they're coming to close if they're looking to sell a house?
Well, once
Any
it's gone
tips?
under
Okay.
contract, we determine whether and we ask the sellers if they have their own attorney or if they're gonna use our attorney. And so, if they don't have their own attorney, our attorney will draft their paperwork for, the deed and the lien waiver required for North Carolina. Um, I mean, most people should know, not any kind of advisement, but things that we collect are going to be the seller's paperwork. So they're gonna have to say who they are, whether or not they're married, because North Carolina is a marital state,
Mhm.
so we need to know if there's somebody else involved that has to sign off on the title. They'll indicate whether or not they have an attorney. Any mortgages or liens that would be against the property, they have to fill out a piece of paper, stating that.
Yeah.
And then if they have a homeowners association, any information they can pass along to us. Those are things that we have to make sure are clear because they're liens against the property.
Okay.
So we have to take care of any mortgages, any judgments, or any homeowners association taxes, things like that.
Okay.
Um,
And you talk about the names on the loan, on the title and everything like that. And I always find a way in the show to bring in my grandson, Oliver, who I was visiting this weekend babysitting. So my
yeah.
son did it right. His wife, they've been married about coming up on 4 years in July. And Sarah had bought the house before they got married. So Travis's name is on the title, not the loan. And I said, smooth. Now, from a buyer standpoint, what questions should they ask of you or somebody to make sure none of this could happen to them?
Yeah, so they're gonna be working with a great lender and an agent that are going to direct them very wisely and hopefully include us on a part of that process as well. So on a buyer standpoint, a lot of their paperwork is gonna be dealt directly with the lender and
Okay.
with their agent. Um, Really for us, we're gonna need their names so we can make sure our attorney runs them for judgments and liens to make sure that they don't have anything pre-existing that should be dealt with before they buy a property. And then we're gonna say, "Where do you wanna sign,
Yeah.
and what time do you wanna
Yeah.
sign? And here's how you take care of your funds, wire or
Yeah.
certified check." And
Okay.
so we don't have too much initial involvement with the buyers unless, I'm out there being able to say, "Hey, if you are buying, then keep in mind that this is a process that you can use. This is how we work. This is our flexibility, our customer service, and our pricing."
And you have a good chance again in a BNI chapter. We're here with Stephanie Jopson with South Mountain Group talking about title escrow and loan closings. And you have in every BNI meeting, it's for the visitor. So it's our job to educate the visitors and the other members what we do, which you'll have a good chance to do this next week because you guys have a big visitor day coming up next week,
Yeah,
don't you?
tomorrow
Oh,
tomorrow
that's right, tomorrow.
morning,
Okay, all right.
yeah,
So you'll go
yeah.
home. You leave from here, go straight home and prepare, and you've got 12 visitors coming, I'm sure. But those are a lot of fun because you get to meet
Yes.
some new people and you kinda get to show off not only BNI, but your chapter.
Yeah, absolutely. I love our visitors days.
Yep, and I know Noemi Rodriguez, who's a friend of the show, is in
Yeah.
your chapter as well, so I know
She's a powerhouse.
she'll have a joke or 2.
Yeah.
I was telling Stephanie before we started the show, I always like to do research on the guests here, and I Google them and see what comes up. And I told her in a good way, in the most complimentary way I can say, she is the most boring Google I've run across on the show. There is hardly anything there. However, you did tell me we're talking about other Stephanie Jobsons and
Yes.
Jobsons, and you told me you are actually related to one of them.
Yes, well, not related, so my cousin is Matt Jopson, and he married a Stephanie.
So you're
So,
7th
yeah,
cousin
so
twice, yeah,
so
okay.
she is now a Stephanie Jopson, and, ironically, we also both have a son named Isaac. He's an Isaac Jopson, mine is not an Isaac Jopson,
Okay,
but we both had there's 2 Stephanie Jopsons, and
yes.
we both have a son named Isaac.
And there's a
So,
Stephanie Jobson
yes.
in the UK who's been very busy on social media and
I've
everything, so
seen that, I've
so
seen that, I'm a little jealous, apparently I need her social life,
it's funny
and
what when you Google, it's like, "Ooh, didn't know that," so The other thing I learned from you, well, actually, you're from Rochester. We
Yes,
talked about that. So I have a very good
yes.
friend up there. Used to be a radio guy up there. His name is Mike Paz. Don't know
Okay,
if you know who he is,
I
but knew
don't.
him through NASCAR, working at Daytona. He's what track announcer, good dude and
Okay.
everything. So I'm going through your Facebook because we are friends on Facebook because we've
Yes.
known each other for a little while. And you have 3 sisters, right?
No.
Oh,
I
they're
have
listed at here's what
oh,
came up.
sister-in-laws.
Okay, it
Yeah.
said 3 sisters and 5 aunts.
Oh, I have 1 sister,
Alright.
and gosh, I might have 5 aunts altogether. Let's see. Yeah, yeah, a good 5
Okay.
or 6. I think
Alright.
6 technically.
6, okay.
Yeah.
Alright. Okay.
They might not all be on Facebook. I think my Aunt Carolyn doesn't have a Facebook.
Well, there were 5 that were listed as
Yes.
aunts. I thought, "This must be your parents
Yes,
must have had."
my sister so 2 of those sisters that you saw in there are sister-in-laws. I
Okay.
have sister-in-laws up in New York State,
Alright.
and then actually, my sister is also up in Rochester.
Okay. So do you have nieces and nephews?
I do. I have lots of them.
Are you favorite Aunt Stephanie?
You know what? I think I would have to say that.
Yeah.
I stay pretty involved with them, most of them over the phone, but
Okay.
yeah, I do pretty well in that. I think I score well in hanging out with them and
And
being fun.
I have found that through Facebook and texting, because both sides, my side of the family and my wife's side of the family, we have a text chain. And that's a
Oh,
wonderful way of
yeah.
keeping in touch with everybody. But it's
Yeah.
funny when you have 10 people on there that when you ask one question, then somebody else follows with another question, and then there's an answer, and then you try to answer to the first question that was 8 minutes
And
ago. Everybody's like,
everybody
"What? Wait, what?"
yeah.
And then you throw a grandparent in there who's really not, real good on social media and
Yeah.
typing and everything. "Wait, stop, we gotta do this, come back to." But that's great for me to keep in touch with my nieces and nephews, just a quick
Yes.
text. "Hey, how's
We
everything
are all
going?"
very
However we can, yeah.
Facebook active. That's how I stay, the most up to date with all of my family up there.
Well, then while I'm staying on your Facebook page, let's, see if this is correct as well,
Okay.
because I like to see just whatever's on there.
Yeah.
Your favorite quote is from a song called "Vindicated."
Well, I just really like the
Song,
song, and
okay,
that was a very old I think that was probably when I very first signed up with Facebook, and I don't
okay.
even know that that was still on there.
Well, and full
Yeah.
disclosure, I truly looked for your MySpace page, but I couldn't find it because a couple of
Oh.
guests have had that. It was active, so yeah.
Very,
Yeah,
very, I did
yeah.
have a MySpace
Mhm.
very briefly
Yeah,
before
yeah.
Facebook,
Most people did, yeah,
and then all my friends were like,
yeah,
"MySpace is so old,
yeah.
Stephanie, just let it go and do a Facebook," and so
So why
Facebook
Vindicated?
yes.
What
Um, it's been a long time. I think I signed up in 2009 with Facebook, so it must have been probably a time of my life that I was just kind of working through, and I just
stuff?
felt very
Yeah.
passionate
Okay,
about the message of the
okay.
song.
Alright. There's usually a reason to why some of these things are, whether they're
Yeah,
9 years
I
old or
should
9 minutes
probably
old.
revisit that and maybe adjust it accordingly.
It's one of the things I tell people when you're looking at your resume, you might wanna know what's in your resume before you go,
Yes, I'm
"Wait,
gonna
that
have to go
job? Oh,
back
that
and
was 22
revisit
years
that.
ago? I think I did, yeah, so." But that was funny. But I enjoyed Googling stuff like that and learning, and you never know. But you do have a bunch of initials after your name, and I believe most of
Yes.
these are correct, or groups you're involved in. So what
Mhm.
is TMLA?
TMLA is Triangle Mortgage Lenders
Yeah, okay.
Association, and, I'm a big believer in BNI and their VCP, your visibility equals your credit, or your visibility plus your credibility equals your profitability,
Yes.
and so I have learned that by getting involved in different organizations that support what I do, it also helps me feed my BNI chapter, and they in turn feed different things that I stay involved in.
And that's a great point you brought up because I do some training for BNI for new members, and one of the things and Steve Hand, who's the executive director, talks about this all the time, is joining an association is one thing. You know, if you go to a social out and all this stuff, that's fine. But you're really not going to get ingrained into that group until you volunteer for a committee or volunteer for something.
Mhm.
And my sense is you've done that.
I
And
do,
again,
I like
but
to.
that's how people get to know you instead of I see her here all the time. I don't remember her name, but I've seen her. But once you volunteer, oh, Stephanie, yeah, give her a
Yeah.
call.
Yes, absolutely. I like to stay very active, and I do like to volunteer with things and just be involved. I like to have a good network of knowing people and knowing how they pull together, and I'm like a kid at Christmas when I can connect people and
Yeah.
find something like, "Oh my gosh, you need to know this person," and help inspire their business.
Oh, yeah. Were you when I visited your chapter a few weeks ago, were you part of the dentist story? Who was it was the newest member in your chapter going to see the dentist.
Oh, yeah, Lori,
You
Lori
were.
Kenny.
It was you and 2 of you knew the dentist.
Well, Heather knew,
Heather,
yeah,
yes,
Heather wanted to meet the dentist.
yes,
Lori was going to be going to see the dentist. Lori was looking for a way to be able to caption what Heather needed to
yeah.
say to him, and I think I just kind of piped in with a little excerpt of
You did,
an
yes,
idea
yeah.
of how you could just kind of make it while you're sitting there in the chair.
And so everybody knows Heather's the banker.
Yes, Heather Eno is our banker from Fidelity
Yes,
Bank in Mebane.
yes, and who was going to visit the dentist?
Lori Kenny. So Lori Kenny is our CPA there,
Yep,
and, she was going to be going to the dentist, happened to know him and his son, and was like, "Hey, if I'm gonna be sitting there in the chair and saying
yeah.
anything, what should I say?"
And that just kinda came up in conversation. I think Heather brought or, no, Heather didn't bring it up, Lori brought it up.
Yeah, I think Lori brought it up
But
because
just in
Heather had
passing
repeated it several
yeah, that's it.
times, which
Heather had
was
asked
great.
to that day, and all of a sudden Lori
Yep,
goes, "Oh, I'm going to see him today," and that's how stuff lights quick in
it
BNI.
was.
We talk all the time, specific is terrific, and if Heather had not asked for that doctor, Lori would have never gone.
Yeah,
But now that she was in the chair, she said, "Well, let's" and then you guys were very good at giving her ways of kinda bring that into the conversation of, "Oh,
yeah.
by the way," so
Noemi had that moment too a few weeks ago when you brought that up, and all of a sudden you were like, "So who do you wanna meet?" And she's like, "Heather Morton." And
yeah.
I'm like, "Oh my
You
gosh,
that's
I
right,
had
yeah,
just sat at a table with her on Friday morning, and here it is Tuesday morning,
yeah.
and we can make that happen."
But that's the beauty
Specific, you're right,
exactly,
specific is
and
terrific.
there's a difference, we talk all the time, the difference between a lead and a referral. A lead is, you know, your neighbor 2 doors down hates cutting his lawn, and you have a landscaper in your BNI chapter, and you tell your landscaper to call your neighbor goes, "Now, I don't know why Mike told you to call me, I just gripe about it, but I enjoy doing it." That's a lead. A referral is when your neighbor goes, "Mike, do you know somebody that cuts grass? I hate cutting grass." I say, "Yes, I've got a landscaper in my chapter." So my landscaper now has a qualified referral for potential business because my neighbor asked for that. And that's one of the beauties of BNI is the referral part of it that that person knows you're about to call because they've asked for the business.
Yes,
And there are a
definitely.
few people out there, if you love cold calling, God love you. But your conversion rate's gotta it's horrible
It
at
is.
best.
Yes.
But when you find somebody in BNI, when you ask for somebody, they go, "Oh, I know that person. Let me connect you with that." That just boy, that speeds up that very fast.
It is great. You know, Anna is our Mary Kay lady in our
Mhm.
group, Anna Florence Crawford, and she is amazing at that. She recently
Oh,
had
yeah.
connected with a couple realtors to do some portfolios for them. And when the realtor had sent her a message back saying, "Hey, if you know anybody that wants to buy or sell, let me know." And Anna instantly could roll into that and said, "Hey, I don't right now, but I know 2 people in my chapter that regularly work with the people that are buying and selling. Can I make you that connection
Yeah.
and see what you guys can't put together?" And that was beautiful. We actually connected. She's a wonderful brand new realtor out in Burlington. And that kind of mindset from within your group makes BNI
Oh,
just
yeah.
mind blowing.
Well, and that's what I love about that is the connection on when you meet somebody like that, and because BNI teaches you to listen different, because
Yes.
before she was in BNI, Anna was in BNI, she may not have ever listened for the realtor going, "I'd love to meet a title person."
Yeah.
And the other thing about that uh, I'm drawing a blank. Oh, I hate that. She's gonna kill me. Our Mary Kay. Who did we have on here a couple weeks ago for Mary Kay? Marcy.
Marcella?
Marcella, thank you.
Yeah.
Golly. Sorry, Marcella.
She's a great
She
lady
is
as
wonderful,
well,
but
yeah.
you don't understand the value of somebody in Mary Kay like that because how many hours they spend with a client, they get to know them, what they like,
Yes.
what they don't like, what's going on in their life that's good or bad. It's like, "Oh, I know somebody that can help you with that." So
Yes.
Mary Kay people, hairdressers, I mean, gold
I
resources
absolutely
right there.
agree.
DRAR is also
DRAR, that is the Durham Regional Association of
ah,
Realtors,
yes.
and I just joined them this year, but I've been involved with them the last couple of years in different charity things that they've done, supporting them with baskets and different gift cards, and so, this year we were able to actually join. We love doing their home shows.
No
They're
good.
very active in the community with, Habitat for Humanity. and just supporting some really close to home local organizations for that. And so I love to be a part of that. It plays in well with the TMLA.
Well,
And
and now that we've talked on TMLA, I looked at it, I was wondering if the L meant llama, but it really doesn't. It means lenders, and then the DRARA does not mean alpaca, it means
No, I'm
association.
so
So this is
sorry.
but this is why I ask questions, so I can learn.
Yes, there's no zoology, anything in there. It's just
And the other group, I'm just gonna say NAMBA.
NAMBA, yes. So I'm new to them as well as of this last August. NAMBA is very wordy one. National Association for Minority Mortgage Bankers of America.
Wow.
So they're a trade organization that has gone out there and they're about 3 years old and they're really building up the mortgage businesses, whether you're a lender, a realtor, or a title girl like me, anybody that is a woman owned or minority owned business in there.
Okay.
They're pulling together a lot of organizations to really build that up. So there's a lot of mortgage lenders and realtor associations out there that want to be a part of this. And building these different businesses up and supporting that. And so last August, I got a phone call from a lady, said, "Hey, one of your lenders gave me your name, and are you interested?" And learned more about their organization and how they support the community and these
Nice.
businesses. So we got very involved, and our insurer is now involved. And another one of our lenders has joined
Good.
on and just really gotten to take an active role in their organization.
And this is also one of the reasons why we enjoy talking about BNI on the show is wanting people to come visit chapters because they learn about people like you who are fully vested in helping everyone else grow their chapter, but you're also involved in the community, which again, there's just all kinds of good people in BNI that not
Yeah.
only because we're all there to make a dollar, we're not going to kid anybody,
Yeah.
but most of us give back to the community as well. So that's
Yes.
good to hear.
And that was actually a great thing too, because again, Joe Navarra, was looking more for a more national speaking
Hmm.
opportunity and reached out to me, and I was able to connect him with the lady that organizes all of that,
Yeah.
and it sounds like that connection went very well, and
Oh, very
maybe he
cool.
might be doing
There you
something with
go.
them.
And he'll
Yeah.
give you a thank you for closing
Yeah,
business, right?
it was great.
So you said
Yeah.
something earlier, you need a vanity license plate. Title
Oh,
girl,
title girl.
GRL if it doesn't all fit, right?
Or white collar farm girl. I don't really know what the what's
FFA,
the
right?
like a 4-H project meet. I don't know.
Goat mom, well,
Yeah,
probably that wouldn't
yeah.
work, but yeah, so
Um,
or just Norman's my son.
Norman's
Norman's my other
antics.
son.
I have a popular hashtag for Norman's antics, because he just does all of these naughty things,
Yep,
and he's
like eats
he's
the pig's food.
like, eats the
That's
pig's food,
funny.
but he also will get out of the pasture every once in a
Oh,
while,
yeah.
and he stays close to the house, like, he doesn't like to run away, and sometimes Tulip will follow him, and so a couple weeks ago, my neighbors called me, and they're like, "Do you know your goat's out behind your Jeep?" And I'm like, "What?" They're like, "Oh, wait, Tulip's out there
Yeah.
too." And, I run out of the house, and there's Norman and Tulip hanging out, eating my plants
Mhm.
and shrubs around there, and
Yeah.
but the nice thing is when I run out there and I'm like, "Oh my gosh," I just walk to the gate, and they just
Yeah.
follow me and go right in there like, "Glad you opened the door."
'Cause
Eh
they don't wanna get far away, but they want you to
No.
know that, "And we got out."
Yeah, we're out.
We can if we want, but we love you enough, we're not gonna
Yeah,
run away from
yeah.
you.
They don't go away.
So this is April Fool's Day. So your plans for the rest of the year on how to grow your bottom line through BNI, what kind of new things do you have for you that you're gonna do in your chapter that are gonna help you grow your bottom line?
So for me, my personal goal in my chapter has been asking them to help me get one new realtor every single month. And in each
Gotcha.
new realtor every single month, within 30 days of having that realtor connection, I would like to have a deal on the table with them.
Okay.
So in North Carolina, we don't conduct it as a loan closing, only an attorney can do that. So I will conduct it as their loan signing.
Okay.
And so my goal again is to have a realtor every month and within 30 days of meeting that realtor to have a contract on the table together.
All right. And if people wanna know more information about South Mountain Group, they can call the phone number up here on the screen for you. But what's the website?
Absolutely. Website is very easy, www.southmountaintitle.com. I think
Okay.
it's
All right.
southmountaintitle.com. We do have a great new website going up, And that is another beautiful story of BNI. BNI led me to meeting this fabulous group of other women. And within that women, we had a great website designer that is helping us do this whole new website that's just, I can't wait till it's unveiled. It's gorgeous and exciting.
Wonderful. Well, we've enjoyed having you on
Yeah.
the show today, learning about
Thank you.
Norman and some title questions that we all should know, be whether
Yes.
you're the buyer or the seller, because every industry has their stories, don't they?
Yes.
And they usually begin with a separation or
Yes.
money being involved. So,
Sellers, be honest.
yep, exactly.
Buyers
Because it's going
too.
to come out,
It
right?
is.
There's
It
no,
is. Just
well, we'll say rarely does that
yeah.
sneak through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We like to never sneak through.
Yeah. In other
So
states, it would sneak through by
yes.
other companies, but not through stuff.
Well, we cover 40. So
Yeah.
in our
In
40
the other
states,
10,
we
yeah.
don't ever want it to
So,
sneak through.
but anyways, we've enjoyed having you on the show. Good luck with everything.
Thank
Good
you.
luck with
Thank
your
you so
visitor day
much.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
RD20 Bridge to Success, Tuesdays, 8:30 a.m. at the Iron Skillet in Mebane. And join us next week. Our guest is Matt Stone with Farm Bureau Insurance. Thank you for joining us on Triangle BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.